Good morning, guys. 95 to 98% of us go through our lives in a state called drifting. And what drifting is a state of mind, really. It can be a negative state of mind, or it can just be a state of mind where we're really not living our why. Why do we really do what we do? So once we are aware of that, and once we acknowledge that we are meant for more than that, we're the only ones in nature that can drift. Every other creature, every other part of nature has a definite purpose, a why for what it does. So human beings are the only ones. So it all goes back to, again, finding your one word, or finding what it is that is bigger than just you, that can drive you each and every single day to get up and do what you want to do. You got to ask yourself why. Why do you do what you do? Don't worry about the how. The how can seem insurmountable, but the why, that's your aim, your target. Have a great day, everybody.
Feel the power of you controlling your breathing. In through your nose and out through your mouth. You've got your legs crossed, your back straight, your eyes closed. You remember the truth. You know the truth. That you were born to win, to take control of your life the way you take control of your breathing. One breath at a time, one thought at a time. So let's do that right now. Let's see ourselves doing the best we can as we begin our day today in the best way possible. Winning the morning, winning our mind, and growing our minds and our bodies. And whatever we do. So right now, let's see ourselves doing the best walk we've ever done when that music shuts off. Right here, right where we are, right where we sit. Because we know the truth. After all, we're made of truth. We're made of the same stuff the universe is made of. That's what makes you infinitely intelligent.
Inside to Suarez, helped on to Messi! Over the wall.
Most people think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is just a book about money. They read it, get inspired, maybe even start thinking about business differently. But they miss something deeper. What if I told you that many of its core principles were already written thousands of years ago, and not in a finance textbook, but in scripture? The problem is, most people separate faith from money. They pray on Sunday and panic about bills on Monday. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many believers struggle financially not because God is withholding provision, but because they ignore biblical financial structure. They want miracles without multiplication. They want increase without stewardship. And they want freedom without learning how to make money in a disciplined, kingdom-aligned way. That tension creates frustration, and frustration creates stagnation. But what if the principles that build wealth in business, investing, and the American financial system were never separate from biblical wisdom? What if the laws of assets, leverage, stewardship, identity, and multiplication were embedded in Scripture long before Wall Street discovered them? That realization changes everything. Because it means wealth isn't worldly, it's structural. In this video, you're going to see how 18 powerful money lessons from Rich Dad, Poor Dad are deeply rooted in biblical truth. Not prosperity hype, not motivational fluff, but principles, tested in markets, tested in business, and tested in scripture. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. If you like our content, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Because when faith and financial intelligence align, something shifts internally. Money stops being emotional, business becomes strategic, and freedom stops being a fantasy and starts becoming a system, one you can actually build. The biblical wealth mindset. Why most people stay broke. He often says that most people don't have a money problem, they have a mindset problem. And if we're honest, the Bible has been teaching that for thousands of years. Proverbs 23:7 says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." Before money ever multiplies in your hands, it multiplies or dies in your mind. Most people stay broke not because they lack opportunity, but because they've accepted limitation as their identity. They think small, pray small, and then wonder why their business never grows. Failure, for example, isn't something God avoids. It's something he uses. Peter failed publicly. Moses failed in anger. David failed morally. Yet none of them were disqualified from impact. In business, people quit after one bad investment or one failed attempt to make money. But Scripture shows that failure isn't final. It's formative. Proverbs 24:16 reminds us that the righteous fall 7 times and rise again. The difference isn't perfection, it's resilience. Then there's fear. And fear is expensive. 2 Timothy 1:7 tells us that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Yet most financial decisions are driven by fear. Fear of losing money, fear of investing, fear of starting a business, fear of looking foolish. That fear keeps people playing safe, and playing safe sounds wise, until you read the parable of the talents in Matthew 25. The only servant who was rebuked was the one who buried his talent to avoid risk. Playing it safe isn't faith, it's disguised insecurity. The kingdom operates on stewardship and multiplication, not preservation and stagnation. When God gave Adam the garden, he didn't say protect it from change. He said, be fruitful and multiply. That's expansion language. In today's terms, build assets, grow income streams, learn how to make money work for you. Faith doesn't mean recklessness, but it never means paralysis either. Another hidden truth is identity. Luke 16:10 says, whoever is faithful in little will be faithful in much. Notice, faithfulness precedes increase. Many people want wealth without becoming the kind of person who can manage wealth. He teaches that before someone earns 6 figures in business, they must become disciplined with 3 figures. Before someone handles millions in assets, they must handle hundreds with integrity. Income follows identity, and here's where it becomes uncomfortable. Most people don't lack opportunity, they lack action. James 1:22 says to be doers of the word, not hearers only. Reading about money won't change your finances. Watching business videos won't build wealth. Prayer without movement won't create provision. There's always a moment where mindset must turn into motion. And that shift, that's where everything begins to change. But it leads us into something even deeper. God's financial intelligence. Study money like scripture. He often reminds people that if you want results in any area of life, you must study it intentionally. Yet many believers will study scripture daily but never study money, business, or investing with the same seriousness. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. Notice it doesn't say get money first, it says get wisdom. Wealth without understanding disappears, but wisdom knows how to make money, multiply it, and steward it. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the emphasis on studying money before chasing income echoes biblical instruction. Deuteronomy 6 commands parents to teach diligently in their homes. Not just spiritual matters, but life matters. Money is life exchange. It's what you trade your time for. If families never talk about finances at the dinner table, children grow up financially illiterate. And ignorance in business is expensive. Silence around money often creates generational struggle. He teaches that most people invest blindly. They hear about stocks, crypto, real estate, and jump in without preparation. That's not investing. That's gambling dressed up as ambition. Ecclesiastes 10:10 says if the axe is dull and you don't sharpen it, more strength is needed. Studying financial statements, understanding index funds like the S&P 500, learning about companies like Apple or Microsoft. Reading books like The Intelligent Investor, that's sharpening the axe. Preparation reduces risk. Another powerful principle is the idea of daily choices. He says, we have choices every moment. That mirrors Deuteronomy 30:19. I have set before you life and death. Choose life. Every evening a person can scroll endlessly, or study money. They can complain about bills, or learn how to build assets. They can binge entertainment, or read about business models that generate passive income.
Good morning, guys. Top 10 rules for success today. Warren Buffett is summarizing his top 10 rules, and I want to share with you his rule number 4, which is simply read, read, read. This is the greatest investor in the world, and I would argue one of the greatest human beings in the world, a philanthropist, a guy with a great philosophy, and he's saying he reads 5 to 6 hours a day minimum in total of all the things that he reads. He's a voracious reader. Now, some of you might be thinking, I don't even want to read one book. I've heard that from many of my friends. My friends, sometimes, I'll talk to them, I'm telling them I'm writing a book, and they're like, you know what, Nick, I don't read books, but I'll read yours. And, it makes me laugh, and it's kind of flattering, but it's sad for me because I think you have the ability to do it. And when you start doing it, you get into the minds of great people like yourself, like all of us, and we start to think differently and expand our mind. So read, read, read. Have a great day, everybody.
Ball with the left foot in the bottom right corner. He goes for it. Oh, and he's deceiving, and the goalkeeper completely loses.
Over time, small choices compound more powerfully than stock returns. Investing in your mind is the highest return investment you'll ever make. Romans 12:2 speaks about renewing the mind. The brain is your primary income-producing asset. Courses, mentorship, seminars, financial education, these are not expenses. They're multipliers. Many people will spend $1,000 on a phone, but hesitate to spend $300 on knowledge that could help them make money for decades. That's not lack of funds, that's lack of priority. And once financial intelligence begins to grow, something shifts. Conversations change, decisions change. The way someone evaluates an expense changes. They begin to see assets where others see obstacles. They start recognizing that income alone isn't freedom, structure is. And that realization leads directly into the next level of understanding. The difference between earning money and building something that pays you back. Assets, not income. The kingdom multiplication system. He often explains that most people chase income, but the Bible teaches multiplication. There's a difference. Income is what you work for. Assets are what work for you. In Genesis 1:28, God's first economic instruction was, be fruitful and multiply. That's not salary language. That's increase language. If someone depends only on a paycheck, they're trading time for money. But if they build assets, they create systems that generate money beyond their labor. The parable of the talents. In Matthew 25 makes this painfully clear. The servants who multiplied their talents were rewarded. The one who preserved his without growth was rebuked. In modern terms, burying your money in low-yield, fear-based decisions while inflation eats it alive isn't stewardship. It's stagnation. Kingdom thinking asks, is this producing? Is this asset putting money back into my pocket? If not, why am I calling it wealth? Many people think their house is their biggest asset. But if it takes money out every month, mortgage, taxes, maintenance, it functions as a liability until it produces cash flow. Meanwhile, rental properties, dividend stocks, REITs, index funds, businesses, digital products, those can become producing assets. He would explain that companies like Coca-Cola or Procter & Gamble pay consistent dividends because they produce value. Owning shares means owning a piece of production. Ecclesiastes 11:2 advises diversification. Invest in 7 ventures? Yes, in 8. That sounds surprisingly modern, doesn't it? It's portfolio theory thousands of years before Wall Street. A wise person doesn't rely on one income stream. They build layers, a job, investments, perhaps a small business, maybe online income. Over time, assets begin to outpace salary. And when assets exceed expenses, freedom quietly begins. He also teaches mind your own business. That doesn't mean ignoring your employer. It means building something outside your paycheck. Even while employed, someone can buy index funds monthly, invest in ETFs like VTI or SPY, start a small consulting business, create digital content, or purchase rental property. That's building personal equity. That's separating labor from ownership. And ownership is what builds generational wealth. The shift from employee thinking to owner thinking is subtle but powerful. Instead of asking, how much do I earn? The question becomes, how many assets produce for me? That's when the game changes. And once someone understands multiplication, they begin to see that structure and order matter just as much as assets themselves. Which brings us to something foundational most people overlook. The order of wealth, first fruits, stewardship, and structure. He often explains that wealth is not only about how much money you make, but about the order in which you manage it. Order determines outcome. Proverbs 3:9 says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops." Notice the word first. The kingdom system is built on priority, not leftovers. Most people spend first, save what remains, and invest if there's anything left. That system almost guarantees stagnation. The principle of pay yourself first mirrors this biblical structure. Before paying bills, before lifestyle upgrades, before discretionary spending, allocate for investment. Automatically invest into index funds. Automatically move a percentage into assets. Build business capital first. When someone prioritizes ownership before consumption, they build momentum. It's not about selfishness. It's about structure. Without structure, income leaks, Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance." Planning is spiritual. Budgeting is spiritual. Tracking expenses is spiritual. Many believers pray for increase but refuse discipline. Yet stewardship precedes expansion. For example, if someone earns $4,000 a month and invests 20% consistently into diversified ETFs or dividend stocks, over time, compounding does what emotion never could. Structure creates stability. He would often explain that pressure creates creativity. When you pay yourself first, you feel temporary discomfort, but that discomfort forces innovation. Maybe you negotiate your salary. Maybe you start a side business. Maybe you cut liabilities. When someone commits to building assets before upgrading lifestyle, they train themselves to think like an owner. And owners think differently about money. First fruits also shape generosity. When giving is structured, not emotional, it becomes powerful. Just as investments grow through consistency, generosity multiplies through intention. 2 Corinthians 9:6 reminds us that whoever sows sparingly reaps sparingly. Order creates flow, and when flow begins, something shifts internally. Because wealth is not just about accumulation, it's about alignment. And once someone has order, discipline, and assets growing steadily, they begin to realize something deeper. They cannot build alone. There is another layer that determines scale, and it has everything to do with who surrounds you. The law of increase, generosity, counsel, and leverage. He often explains that true increase is never isolated. Wealth multiplies in environments of wisdom and generosity. Proverbs 11:25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." That sounds counterintuitive in a world obsessed with hoarding money. Yet the kingdom economy runs on flow. When money circulates with purpose, through giving, investing, and business creation, it expands rather than contracts.
Good morning, guys. Today, living, laughing, and loving our way to infinite mind health. I was laughing yesterday. I got to tell you, when I've started this journey in the new year of going on here and writing my book, trying to really help as many people as possible, I've had nothing but great comments, positive things, and it's just driven me more and more each day. It's allowed me to build my confidence and be where I am. But I got to be honest with you, there's been a couple of comments that weren't positive, they were negative, and a couple of them actually really made me laugh. And I thought, well, if we are going to go on this path to infinite mind wealth, which is that path of not letting anything bother us and nothing can take away our happiness, we got to be able to laugh. So, and not only laugh, just be empathetic towards the fact that there's other human beings out there that are still trying to find the positive in things. And that's the aim. So I want to share that with you. I was laughing at myself yesterday. I'm still laughing at myself, and I'm still going. Have a great day, everybody.
The
cross them here.
Magic!
Suarez for Messi!
Pass by Neymar.
People say, when I have more money, I'll give. But Scripture flips that order. Giving activates trust. It trains the heart not to worship income. It reminds the steward that God is the source. Generosity is not about recklessness, it's about posture. And posture determines capacity. Those who cling tightly often limit their own growth. Those who release strategically create room for more. Then there's counsel. Proverbs 11:14 teaches that victory comes through many advisors. In business, isolation is expensive. He doesn't need to know everything. He needs access to people who do. That's leverage. Hiring accountants, financial planners, attorneys, mentors, these are not expenses. They are accelerators. Even in the U.S. market, understanding tax strategies, asset protection, and investment vehicles like Roth IRAs or 401ks can dramatically shift long-term wealth. Leverage also applies to systems and people. Instead of fixing every toilet in real estate, hire property managers. Instead of editing every detail in a business, delegate. Jesus himself delegated authority to disciples. Scaling requires release. When someone leverages people, systems, and capital, they move from effort-based income to impact-based income. That's how business grows beyond personal limits. And as wealth grows, humility must grow with it, because increase without wisdom can destroy character. More money does not fix internal flaws, it magnifies them. That's why generosity and counsel must accompany growth. Otherwise, expansion becomes ego-driven instead of purpose-driven. And when purpose aligns with structure and leverage, something powerful happens. The individual begins to realize that their job was never their source. It was simply a channel. And understanding that distinction changes everything. Freedom is the goal, why your job was never the provision. He often reminds people that a paycheck is not provision. It is a channel. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "It is He who gives you the power to get wealth." Notice the wording. God gives the power, the ability, the creativity, the capacity to make money. The job is temporary. The employer is temporary. The market fluctuates. But the creative ability placed inside you is the true asset. And once someone understands that, fear begins to loosen its grip. Most people unconsciously treat their job as their source. They cling to it, tolerate misery, suppress dreams, all in the name of security. But security rooted in a single income stream is fragile. Kingdom thinking recognizes that employment can be a training ground, not a prison. While working, someone can build assets, start a small business, invest in the S&P 500, purchase dividend-paying stocks, or develop digital income streams. The job funds the future. It doesn't define it. When he says to ask, "How can I afford it?" instead of "I can't afford it," he's describing divine creativity. In Genesis 1, God creates from what appears to be nothing. Humans are made in that image. When someone begins to ask creative financial questions, their brain activates solutions. Could you negotiate a raise? Start consulting? Monetize a skill? Invest in ETFs monthly? Create content? There's always a strategic path to make money when creativity replaces resignation. True financial freedom is not about luxury first, it's about options. The option to choose how you spend your time, the option to say no, the option to serve God without financial panic. Psalm 112 describes a righteous person whose children are blessed and whose wealth endures. That's generational thinking. Freedom is not selfish ambition. It's stewardship extended across time. And here's the truth most people avoid. No one drifts into freedom. It requires intentionality, risk, discipline, and faith combined. It requires building assets, structuring income, investing wisely, renewing the mind, and aligning identity with purpose. When all these layers converge, money stops being a master and becomes a tool. Business stops being survival and becomes impact. And when someone reaches that place, when fear is replaced by clarity, when income is replaced by ownership, when scarcity is replaced by stewardship, they begin to see that everything we discussed was never just about money. It was about alignment. And alignment always demands a decision. Now, the real question is not whether these principles are true. The real question is, will you apply them? Knowledge about money doesn't change your life. Action does. Studying business Principles won't build wealth unless you implement them. Scripture itself says in James 1:22 to be doers, not just hearers. So what are you going to do differently after this? Will you start tracking your finances this week? Will you begin investing consistently even if it's small? Will you build your first asset instead of upgrading your lifestyle? Will you finally stop saying I can't afford it and start asking how can I afford it? The difference between financial struggle and financial freedom is rarely income. It's structure, discipline, and mindset. Think about this. 5 years from now, your life will reflect the financial decisions you make today, the books you read, the risks you take, the business you start, the assets you build, the fear you overcome. So don't let this just be another video you watched. Let it be a turning point. Write in the comments, I am a faithful steward of money and business. And watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. If this message touched you in any way, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications so you can continue learning how biblical wisdom and financial intelligence work together to build real, lasting wealth. Now ask yourself honestly, are you going to drift or are you going to build?
Eyes closed. Focused on our breathing. Back to our breathing. That powerful force keeping us alive, keeping our energy flowing. And we don't really think about it. We never really attempt to control our breathing. Most of us, anyway. But we were born to do that too. To remember that in any moment, we can take charge of it, the way we take charge of our breathing. Same way we take charge of our mind, our thoughts. So reflect back on today. How did you do? Are you satisfied with your work ethic? Are you satisfied with your determination? Did you use it in its fullness, its beauty? Our determination is invisible. We cannot put our finger on it. We cannot see it, but it is there. We have the power to determine what we will think and what we will do. Today, we've won the morning. We've won our minds. And therefore we can win our day and our life. One breath at a time. One thought at a time.